Hi everyone, welcome back to Falcon's House. Today we are going to talk about Westworld Season 3, Episode 2. The show opens with a scene where Maeve meets Hector in Warworld. She then goes through where they're trying to escape, and then she later realizes that she's still stuck in a loop, and it is programmed, and so she can't actually get away, and that Hector doesn't know who she is and is just running a narrative. At the end of the sequence, she kills herself to return to the real world. I think I figured out the scene transition with the circle. It is Rehoboam and how it sees the world, and that these events are unplanned and are changing the outcomes that it has plotted. There are also low tones at play in the audio during this that carry over to the scene after, which might mean something, and it's similarly later in the episode where we're in the real world, there are these low tones, this lower, different music style than we have when we're in the simulation or in Westworld or whatever. The next scene is Bernard reaching Westworld. Bernard walks to a broken down Westworld, and we see old locations such as the church. Maeve wakes up in the repair facility, but Felix does not recognize her when she looks at him and just leaves the room. She wanders around the facility, and Sylvester also doesn't recognize her and calls security. Security approaches her, but she is saved by Lee Sizemore, who says that he survived. She quickly realized that he isn't real and assumes that he is a host version running a narrative because some of the details are wrong. He seems to be in love with her, whereas in real life he wasn't. He just followed her because he was afraid, and then it was the right thing to do. Bernard reaches the childhood home of Ford and goes into the secret door in the room where he has copies of himself. In there he finds Stubbs, who tried to kill himself by blowing up his charge in his neck, but missed, and so he's just been paralyzed and sitting there for who knows how long. He is able to repair Stubbs, and then they decide that they need to go try to find Maeve. Maeve tries to escape from Warworld with the help of Sizemore, and Sizemore takes her to the Forge. Sizemore is trying to get Maeve to show where the other hosts' minds were sent, not knowing that it was Dolores and Bernard that did this, and not Maeve. They assume that Maeve was the one that was in charge of everything going on, and she wasn't. And so that changes things, and that also brings up her that she knows that this isn't necessarily real because they're trying to figure out what happened. They're still trying to collect the data that they lost. She seems to start seeing that the whole world started to shift a little bit and wasn't real, and realized that none of it was real, not just Sizemore. They just needed a little Windows hourglass thing to show as she slows down the world due to excessive programming needed. Bernard finds Maeve's host body in a room where they stored the inactive hosts previously in previous seasons, but her control unit has been removed. Maeve proves that the world is fake by creating a feedback loop by making Sizemore assistants find the square root of -1. So they start creating their own talking loop, and eventually everything starts to slow down as the amount of CPU resources in the area are not very high. She's basically able to throw something and it just pauses in midair, and then eventually just crashes to the floor. Bernard and Stubbs go to the floor where he can access a tablet and search for Maeve. He doesn't find her and searches for himself instead, and for trying to find out changes that Dolores could have made. He goes through a series of little things that are probably memories, and they are noticed by security, and Stubbs fights them off, and there's also a D&D cameo from Game of Thrones and a dragon. Maeve then creates a bigger feedback loop with the soldiers in Warworld claiming that they're all spies, and then that freezes time effectively for her, and is able to use a tablet that Lee got for her to access the real world and is able to take control of a robot to try to escape by stealing back her host control unit. I noticed one thing was that the host control unit number is very high. So that means there are a lot of potential hosts in the real world and other places. So this could mean something. And the way the robot slips on the grass was really well done because they used motion capture to capture the robot movements to make them seem more human almost. Bernard figures out who Dolores was looking for, and it is who she found in the first episode. He reprograms Stubbs to help him instead of having Stubbs try to kill himself again. Maeve wakes up, and there is a painting of the Rehoboam design, so maybe she is inside the AI or something related to the AI and not actually in the real world. She meets with Sirach, who is the other architect of Rehoboam, and he wants her to kill Dolores and bring balance back to the world. She tries to kill him, but he can override her with a button similar to the one that Bernard uses to switch between versions of himself. So he pauses her, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. This might mean it's still not the real world, and maybe this is where he's been hiding from everybody else because nobody else seems to know where he is because he's in the AI and not actually a physical being, and this is all a simulation. And we're farther forward in the future than maybe we think, because at the very end of season 2 in the post-credits scene, they're trying to recreate William as a host. So maybe this potentially relates to that. Anyway, this episode didn't really have as much stuff to talk about, while the story did move pretty quickly. I think this whole season's gonna move quickly. They have a lot to cover still, I think. So, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.